Testing, testing, 1, 2. Mm, Here. Oh, geez. Okay. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. I'm your host, Liz Fisher, and today I'm excited to introduce my friend, Wendy Sharon, who is a certified holistic health coach. She supports separated, divorced women who are 50 plus and struggling with uncertainty, loneliness, and fear to be able to reclaim their future and feel confident and peaceful moving forward. She's the mom of 4 boys and lives in beautiful Naples, Florida. Welcome, Wendy, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Liz. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm interested to know a little bit more about your personal journey and what led you to become a life coach. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey started back in let's about 2011. My fourth son, Jesse, was born, and he surprised us. Happened to be born with Down syndrome. And this was, as I mentioned, when I had him, I was 43, and I was a raw food coach at the time. So here I am showing up at the doctor's office with my green juice, and nobody looked at my pregnancy as being something that was at risk. So when he was born with Down syndrome, it was really surprising. So then, just a short time after that, my husband lost his business, and we had to move out of our amazing multi-million dollar home. And I think it was just a combination of just so much change in such a short amount of time that I was introduced to a life coach that helped me through that difficult time. And so, over the years, I noticed that I started to just really look forward to talking to her, almost just like to complain about what was going on in my life. And,
Uh-huh.
and once I got to the point where I was like that, then I was like, I need to do something within myself. So then I just really started learning, and asking her questions about how I could take this over. Because really, with a life coach, it's really great to have the feedback, but our job is to have our clients fire us as soon as possible. And I had been working with
Yes.
her for years. So,
Uh-huh.
it's learning the tools within that we have everything within ourselves to move forward. So I learned that on my own. And so now, like I said, when I work with clients, it's like, okay, let's, fire me as soon as possible.
Yes, and I love that saying, and I think that that is exactly right because here we are, we're just trying to, in our jobs and whatever ways we are called to lead others to heal, we want them to figure that out and just hold that space for them in the meantime while they're doing that. And then it's kind of like letting your children go, saying
Yeah.
goodbye and go off and do what you need to do. So yeah, I agree that it takes some time for us as coaches, as practitioners to work through that stuff ourselves. And we really need to do that before we become coaches, practitioners, or what have you, because it's not really serving our clients the best when we still have stuff that's stuck personally ourselves. So
Yeah.
what tell me a little bit about the clients that you like to serve. And we talked about, this separated, divorced women who are 50 plus, and how did that kind of come about to be your
Yeah.
niche?
Yeah. So I think how that came about was just, as I've been going through this process, I I see myself in the clients that I work with. So, as I mentioned, I really thought as I first started off as a life coach that I would be working more with, maybe moms that had children with Down syndrome. But
Mm-hmm.
the more I just started going in and digging deep into like my wounds and how I got to where I am, I just started seeing myself in everyone that I meet. So, it just kind of just came about. It just was so natural that um, I see myself in the clients, and you become a magnet to, whoever it is that you're supposed to work with. They kind of just started showing up. And
Mm-hmm.
I always say that they're my teachers. I'm learning. I'm the student and they're the teacher. So
Yeah.
as we work together, it's a mutual back and forth.
Yeah, I agree that I do. I learn so much from my clients. I'm like, oh, they'll tell me about a book, or they'll tell me, oh, no, I use this fidget toy, and oh, you should check this out. And I do. I really, and I listen to them because I want to be able to help others and in the best way possible. And
Yeah.
with that, I want you to tell if whatever you feel comfortable telling our listeners about you and your divorce situation and how that has been, was, or still is maybe a little bit of struggle, but that you are, that's what you do, is help women get out of this to feel confident,
Yeah.
and how your journey has led you to, this kind of helping these types of women and what they're
Yeah.
going through.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I was married 24 years. Early on in the marriage, there was some infidelity that he told me about. Um, maybe like 5 years into the relationship, and then about 10 years into the relationship, I received a email from a woman that she was having a relationship with my husband. And really, at that time, I only, let's see, I had 3 children at that time. And, looking back, I think, oh, you know, why didn't I walk away? Why didn't I walk away? I remember literally getting the email and then running out my front door, like just kind of hysterical, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, our marriage is over. But something in me stayed. There was that fear within that, how could I do this on my own? I mean, I really felt that I couldn't take care of myself, never mind 3 little kids, and be able to make it on my own. So I think that I just, I always took the benefit of the doubt that, he was going to get better or things were going to get better. And I kind of just looked the other way and just did what I, thought I needed to do, was just to be a good stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, then my fourth son was born. And then, things just never got better. I mean, what I'm learning now is that, subconsciously, 88% of our mind is that our subconscious. So even though something is not really um, comfortable, like that relationship that I had with him was not comfortable, it was comfortable for me. It was what I was, those feelings of my childhood, that just kept me in this familiar state. And even though
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing my job with my kids, I was still very comfortable. And I realized that that's what was happening now. And so fast forward, um, we I'd learned so much in my personal development. I was with this online community during the pandemic, and my husband at the time, saw the changes in me and said that he wanted the change as well. But what happens is, when somebody doesn't do something for themselves and they're trying to do it for somebody else, then it's not going to work,
Right.
because eventually it's going to bubble up to the surface that this is really not what they want. So he did come to me, after we couldn't work things out, and said that he was creating a new reality. These are his words from our spiritual, and I wasn't in it.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that really was a turning point for me. I felt so out of control And I realized, these are all my childhood wounds just really bubbling up to the surface from my father dismissing me and not being emotionally available for me. Here, my husband, who actually turned into my father figure, is telling me he no longer wants to be with me. And so I remember feeling so out of control, walking around the house in such pain that I ended up on the floor of my bedroom, curled up in a ball, just, hysterically sobbing, snot running into my hair. And I heard this voice, and the voice said to me, "Are ye of little faith?" And it was so clear. And I literally just said out loud, "I do have faith." And it was from that point on that, as the pain continued over the weeks, and I remember just banging my head with my wrist, now knowing that that was just some type of release, but it was just so out of control that I realized that it was just that faith. And the more that I tapped into trusting that this was exactly where I'm supposed to be going, that I was able to move myself out of all that pain. And so now, I really just, like I said, I love to see myself and other women and, have the compassion because, I've been there. I know how it feels to feel so out of control, and that you can move forward. You can empower yourself in that trust of knowing that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, I think that's such an amazing story that you have, and that makes so much sense why you serve these women, because you've lived through it and you know it and you came out the other side. And um, am I allowed to, do you give me permission to tell our listeners how you and I met?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Kind of
so
fun. I mean,
this is a funny
yeah.
story. So um which we didn't talk offline about this. That's why I'm asking her permission now, because I didn't think it would come up, but I think it's a pretty cool story. So I was in Naples. My aunt and uncle have a place down there, and we visit frequently throughout the year. And we were going, my boys and I were going down last October, it was, and my sister and her husband were meeting us, and my sister and her husband took an Uber from the airport to my aunt and uncle's house to meet us, and Wendy was the one who drove them. So she gave her business card to my sister and said, if you guys need a ride back, you can just call me. You don't have to use Uber. And so did you drive them back to the airport that day? I
No,
can't.
I wasn't available.
Okay, that's right. And
Yeah.
so she took some, another Uber driver, which was fine, but I had your card. So then when I was leaving a few days later with my boys, we had to be up at the crack of dawn. And I thought, I don't know, I'd rather have someone that, was recommended. And I called you or texted you and you said, sure, I'll pick you up at 4 a.m. or whatever that horrible time was. And you came and we talked. And I remember talking about, your journey, and me telling you a little bit about my journey and thinking, oh my gosh, we had a lot of stuff in common. And I had your card again when I was in Naples a few weeks ago. And I said to my aunt and uncle would normally and take me to and from the airport. My uncle had picked me up, but they had a commitment, so they couldn't take me back to the airport when I was leaving. So I texted Wendy and she said, sure, I'll pick you up. So then it was just her and I, and we talked and talked till, I mean, we could have talked for days. It was
Yeah.
like we have even so much more in common. And then we talked about tapping, and we talked about, what my story was and how that came to be and who my clients are, and how we just had so many things. I mean, we even talked about human design, how we were both
Mhm.
interested in that. And that's something that was new for both of us. And just, we had so many things in common. And so when I got out of the car, I said, I really want you to be on my podcast. And she said, of course I will. And then she wanted to learn a little bit more about EFT. So I put her in touch with my trainer and EFT coach. So I mean, that's kind of how this happened. And it ended up that, you know, you had told me in the car that day that you manifested so many things. And I think, I mean, I really believe that you did, because from the time that my sister first used you and I first used you to take us back to the airport, my boys and I, that was, October, and here we were in March. So many things happened differently from the time that we first spoke till the time that we spoke this past month on our way
Yeah.
to the airport. It was like you were originally an Uber driver, and then you didn't even need Uber anymore. So now you were just doing that on the side. Plus, you had all of this, you had this following on Facebook that is like amazing. Tell our listeners a little bit about your Facebook.
Yeah. So I have a Facebook page. It is called Divorce After 50 Support for Women. And, I just started this Facebook group, a few months ago, and we're going to be hitting probably in the next few weeks over 1,000 members in this group. And, unfortunately, that it's women in this age group, 50 plus. I was just looking online that AARP, I think Association of Retired Persons,
Hmm.
they said that 35% of the divorce rate are people over 50.
Wow.
It's really become kind of like an epidemic of, people just, realizing for whatever reason that things aren't working, after the kids, go off to school, or, financial reasons, emotional reasons. My personal opinion is that when we get together in a relationship, it's really finding somebody who is a match to our emotional wounds. So, we don't realize that the
Yeah.
attraction that we first have with somebody is, again, as I mentioned, that feeling tone of what's comfortable from our childhood, and whether
Hmm.
it's good or bad, it's what we're comfortable with. And we end up attracting a partner that keeps us in that. And then, someday, and then we kind of like point the finger at, there's something wrong with them, there's something wrong with them,
Hmm.
when in reality, when we really dive deep, we've created and we've allowed situations in our life to help us grow.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that is I wouldn't say that my husband is very opposite of me, but he is a really good dad and a really good person. And I I think that I was honestly shocked that I would attract him, because all my past relationships have been so bad. And not that my father was bad in any way, shape, or form. He's like the
Yeah,
greatest guy
no.
ever. But it was just this emotional, I needed this father figure.
Mm.
And
Mm.
these guys ended up being not what I needed. They were just a guy, I was just a
Right,
man.
right.
But I think that what you mentioned, or how we talked about, I think something that you said really stuck with me when we got out of the car that day. You talked about, um my brain is, I'm gonna have to edit this out. Um
Relationships, maybe like that
no, you
80%.
talked about oh, I know what you talked about. You talked about being able to forgive the people in your life who aren't sorry for what they did. And that
Oh,
was kind of like a turning
oh,
point for you, because it
yeah,
was because you're almost to be ex-husband, right? I mean, you
yeah,
guys are still working through things. That was how you pushed through, where
yeah.
you said you had this kind of epiphany where it was, I forgive you, even though you
I
aren't
looked at
sorry for
him.
what you did.
Yeah, so I really changed my perspective of, rather than looking at him as being like the enemy, of, this relationship didn't work, and, I left you because you know, you cheated on me all these years. So I really I really changed the perspective to looking at him as my teacher,
Mhm.
like, thank
Mhm.
you. I started being grateful for everything that he taught me, because if I didn't go through the experiences I have with him, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I am so peaceful and happy and content, and just and this is going to sound funny, but just like in love with who I am,
Mhm.
because I've come so far and I've learned so much, and I couldn't be any of these things if he didn't allow me to get to where I'm at. So I really think of him as my greatest teacher.
Yeah, and I think of all my past relationships with people that weren't right for me as, oh, what did I learn from that? How did I? And I was engaged before. I was with my husband and I lived in Chicago with the guy that thought I was getting married to, and we planned our whole wedding, and then he just like up and left. And I thought this was the worst thing that was going to happen to me in my life. And I was 25 or 26 and I had to move home. Well, I moved to Cleveland, actually, where I wasn't originally from, but that's when I got a job at the place where my husband worked. So things happen for a reason. I feel like, well, I was supposed to go through this crappy time to learn something from it. And then I happened on, this guy at work, and he was the perfect match in a lot of ways for me. So there is a lot of learning that happens with the people that you kind of despise for a while in your in your life, but you
Yeah,
can. And I feel like even though this guy that I was engaged to put me through a whole lot, I mean a lot of emotions, a lot of really uncomfortable times, I am not sorry. I don't feel sorry for
yeah,
myself about it. I'm thankful for it. It was the universe meant it to happen like that, and I'm glad that it happened, and I'm stronger because it happened, and I'm grateful for it. So it's definitely a different perspective to be able to change the way you view your past and let it propel you into the future and let it move you forward instead of
yeah.
having it keep you stuck. I think that I wish I knew who said this, but this goes through my mind a lot, especially with my clients, and especially it was me. You cannot move through life or get anywhere without being uncomfortable.
Oh,
Life
yeah.
is about being uncomfortable, and you have to
Everything you
just
want is on
say,
the
yeah,
other side of your comfort zone.
yeah,
Everything. You
everything.
have to push through fear. As a matter of fact, I always say, what is one thing that I'm afraid to do today? That that's that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
Your fear is your compass, and
Yep.
finding that one thing that you're afraid to do, that's your next step.
Yeah, and like you said, you stayed in that relationship for years knowing, hey, this isn't good for me based on fear.
Right.
And then something happened and he said, this is what it is, and you had no choice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thank goodness for that. And or you could still
Yeah.
be
So
still be stuck.
I can
Yeah.
look at that perspective, be thankful for him for that reason. Exactly.
Yeah,
And I
and
always say that you can suffer from your suffering, or you can learn wisdom from your suffering.
yep.
I
That's
always choose to learn.
exactly true. And you and I have similar backgrounds when you were talking about, you know, uncomfortable emotions and not knowing how to deal with emotions. That's basically how I grew up, with parents who weren't taught how to deal with emotions. So there was all these stuck emotions and not knowing how to express and just swallowing. And it keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck, and it also
Absolutely.
makes you develop, in my case, you can develop things that are unwanted in your life. You can develop physical pain. You could develop emotional things. You could develop uh, habits and things like that that you don't want. And that's from letting yourself stay stuck and not dealing with what, like you said, what's about to bubble to the surface that you really don't want to tap into. But hey, it's there for a reason, and it's like, let me out. I want to be free. I want to be out of your body. I want to clear some space for whatever is meant to come in. And that's what I feel like happened for you from the time I saw you in October to the time that I saw you this past month. Was this stuff came up, you let it come up, and you've been like really manifesting all these great things to come into your life, and you couldn't have done that staying stuck. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
think it's awesome. So I think we should do a little bit of tapping around these fears that maybe some of these women who are struggling right now and are wondering if they should be separated, or wondering if they should ask for a divorce, or are in the middle of a separation or a divorce, that it is scary and they probably do feel lonely, and maybe they are holding a grudge and they feel like their spouse is responsible for it. And I think that we should do some tapping around how would it feel to let some of that go, some of that fear around what we're
Ooh,
letting
I
rule
just got
us in the
goosebumps.
moment. You got goosebumps?
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, that's exactly it. I just got goosebumps.
So I
Oh,
hope I can make this wording feel like it resonates with some of you women out there who are going through this. So what I'm going to ask you to do, all the listeners out there, and please don't do this if you are not in a safe space, if you're driving, don't do this if you're driving. And if you're at home, you can find yourself in a comfortable spot with your feet flat on the floor, energy grounds through our feet, and we can do a little bit of tapping together. I will guide you through the points. Wendy's going to follow with me. She doesn't have to repeat after me, but she's going to follow the points with me. And we'll do 2 rounds. And I'd like you to just write down or think in your head a number on a scale of 0 to 10 about this fear of what's to come, fear of the unknown, fear of, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be safe? Is this the right thing to do? Are my kids going to be okay? These decisions, fear of decisions, hard decisions, any of that.
yep,
So,
finances is
oh,
a
what was
big
that?
finances are a big
Oh,
concern.
finances. Yes. Am I gonna be alone forever? Am I gonna be able to pay my bills? Am I gonna, is anyone gonna want me I'm 50 plus? Is this, I'm starting from scratch here. This is too much for me. I'm overwhelmed. So, um, write down your number. Pick one of those. Feel into your body. Where does it resonate with you? Does your heart hurt? I'm imagining that most of you women have your heart chakra feels really off balance when we talk about this. It feels like, ow, I have this hurting heart. And maybe that's something you can focus on. Your heart chakra and how that feels. Does it feel heavy? Does it feel like a stabbing pain? Does it feel like it's not even attached to your body at this moment? Feel into that and write down your number, think of your number in your head, and let's do a couple of rounds of tapping and we'll see if we can get that number down a little bit. So we're going to start on the side of our hand. We're going to do our setup statements. Even though I have this fear that I'm making the wrong decision and it feels uncomfortable, especially if there are kids involved. My decision might not be the right one for them. And I don't know if I can stay stuck for the rest of my life. I love and accept myself. And even though it's hard for me to forgive because I have so much hurt in my heart right now about what has gone on in my marriage or my relationship with someone, how do I get over this and survive? I love and accept myself. And even though I want to move forward, I'm struggling so much with overwhelm in the moment because it seems like there's too many things to do, too many loose ends, too many scary things. Am I going to be financially secure? Am I going to be alone forever? Is this the right thing for my kids? I feel like I'm to blame for some of this, and it hurts my heart. I love and accept myself. Top of the head. This all feels too overwhelming, and I don't even know if I want to go through with it. Eyebrow point. I I feel uncomfortable on a daily basis, and It's eating me up inside of the eye. Is this the right decision that I'm making? Some days it feels right. Some days it feels wrong. I need to check in and make sure I'm making the right decision for me. Under the eye. I'm afraid to be lonely. I'm afraid to be poor. I'm afraid to not be able to support myself and my kids. Under the nose. This is too much for me. Why am I doing this? I don't want to do it. He or she is forcing me. I don't have a choice. The chin point. This all feels overwhelming, like a big heavy weight on my body, specifically my heart is just hurt and broken, and I don't know how to repair it or if it will ever be repaired. Collarbone point. I want to find a way to get through this and move to the other side with grace and peace, because that's really what I deserve. Under the arm. How long is this going to take? What if I'm doing this for years of my life and then I'm 60? Then what? Top of the head. I am choosing to manifest the quickest way to get to the other side of this. Eyebrow point. It's painful, but I can endure pain as long as I come out the other side. All this pain, side of the eye, is I don't deserve it, but I'm willing to get through it if it will make me stronger and happier and more grounded in myself. Under the eye. All this fear that has been running my life for such a long time. It's not healthy. And I'm ready for a change. Under the nose. If I could look at my spouse as a teacher for me, instead of this person that has been basically holding me back for all these years, maybe I can move through this easier. Chin point. I deserve to let go of some of this fear because it's not always going to be like this. I am going to be better and stronger than I ever was when I come out the other side. Collarbone point. I'm willing to try and forgive, even if my spouse isn't sorry for what they did. I can be the better person here, and I deserve it. I deserve peace, and I deserve to be happy for the rest of my days. Underarm point. This fear has been keeping me stuck long enough. I'm ready to let go of some of this in my heart. I'm choosing to let my heart heal so that I am able to welcome in whatever the universe has in store for me. And I'm going to work hard until I start to feel healed and whole again. Okay, we can stop there. Take a deep breath. And Wendy, let me know how that felt for you.
Yeah, that felt very calming. That
Good,
really-
I'm glad. And I'm hoping that that helped our listeners, anyone that's going through anything like this, or is contemplating going through something like this, and they're stuck around fear. And I can tell you, I was so fearful to even start this podcast.
Yeah.
All kinds of things happened. I asked the universe to, I put it out there that I wanted to do this podcast, and all these things fell into place. So that's something that you can do as well if you're going through this. Put it out there in the universe. Hey, universe, say it. That's the first step in manifesting what you want. say, hey, I'm stuck, I'm fearful, but I don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. Help me. Put
Yeah.
some things in my path that let me know that I'm making the right decision. And then look for those things. They'll happen and it
Just
won't
have
be
a
so scary. Go
it's
ahead.
just it's just the willingness,
Yes.
the willingness to do it. You only have to have a little bit of willingness and the universe will do the rest.
It's so easy. Isn't it scary how easy it is? It's like, wow, I can
Yeah.
manifest anything I want. One time I manifested 2 free vacuum cleaners.
Wow.
And that's when I was just learning about manifesting, and I thought, I'll do something really small. y- it's like the world is at your fingertips with this. So staying stuck in fear is so limiting. I mean, all of these ways, tapping, um, anything, working with a life coach, anything that you can do to move past your fears,
Mhm.
it is positive and is a good way to test the waters, even if you're afraid.
Absolutely.
Good
Could
things will
you tell
happen.
us a little bit about tapping and what we just did and how this is, how it works to
Yes.
release the fears? I
Yeah.
really love the
So,
idea that we moved into willingness is
yes.
what I felt out of
Yeah.
fear
Out of fear
into
and into willingness. So,
willingness.
we're basically tapping into, no pun intended, stuck energy around the actual fear. And that fear could be really deep rooted. It could be from childhood. It could be from a past life. It could be from something that happened in utero. It could be any of these things. I don't know what it is for you, but we're working on a very, um, this is kind of surface level is how this tapping would be. If I was with a client, we would go way deeper into your past and kind of peel the layers away. But this is just something to calm your fears. And it really does, if you tune in to where you feel it in your body, which I'm guessing that a lot of it's your heart chakra. Um, some of it could be throat chakra too, where you're afraid to say something, you're afraid to speak your voice. Um, when we tap our amygdala, which is the lower back part of our brain, our cortisol level lowers. And when you feel a fear come up or when you feel uncomfortable feelings come up, that is your fight, flight, or freeze going into action, springing into action, saying, you are not safe. And here's what your body does. Your cortisol level rises. You start to, your shoulders go up around your ears. You start to clench parts of your body and your muscles, and you feel tense. Tapping lowers your cortisol level very quickly, even if you're not saying anything, even if you're just tapping one point, even if you're just holding a point and breathing. These points are all connected to the hundreds of acupressure points that are on your body that Chinese medicine has used for thousands of years, and they're proven to work. It's like acupuncture, but with your fingertips, and bringing these feelings into awareness, saying them out loud has a very big impact on getting the energy around them to clear. And other things might come up, which is completely normal. And that's what we do in tapping. I'll say to my client after we get done with those 2 rounds, what came up for you? Did you feel a shift? Where is that energy now? Did an actual event come up? Which most of the time it will. Oh, I remember X, Y, and Z. And okay, so these are separate things that we'll tap on. Their layers, kind of like an onion. We're peeling away the layers. So doing that tapping, the reason we feel calm is because our cortisol level actually lowers when we tap those points together, and bringing those emotions, that energy, the stuckness around anything into awareness is such a big part of why tapping works. So I hope that helped
Thank
explain
you.
a little bit why that works there. I'm going to have Betsy Muller on one of the episodes this season, which I haven't decided which episode yet, but she might have already come up. Who knows if I haven't decided where we are in the lineup of episodes, but she talked on season 1 about why tapping works. And I got so many comments saying, I need to know more, like why, I need to know more scientific evidence. I need to know more of why. So Betsy will be on with me, and we're recording actually in the next week, 2 weeks from now, that episode. So even if this didn't help enough or you need more clarification, you can listen to the episode with Betsy and I in season 2, and it'll help clarify a little bit more. But even if you don't believe in it, you don't have to believe in it. It still works. It's proven. There are MRIs. There's a study that was done by Peta Stapleton, who is an MD, medical trained doctor. She's in Australia, and she has done multiple MRI studies to show the cortisol levels of the brain just after a few rounds of tapping. And your brain chemistry actually changes when you tap. So it's pretty amazing, and it's documented. It's in journals, medical journals. So it works, and that's why we do it.
Yeah,
So,
one thing I've learned that energy goes wherever you set your intention.
yes,
Energy goes where intention flows. So yeah.
exactly. I love that saying, and I do believe in that. And it's also a way of manifesting what you want. You know, putting negative energy somewhere, like I can't do it. There's no way. That keeps you stuck. When you let go of that, I've experienced this personally. When you let go of not having money, not being able to pay the bills, not being able to, you know, penny pinching and doing all this stuff, when you let go, then the energy will flow.
Exactly.
So I've never, I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
started
true.
saying, instead of saying I have to, I say I get to, and then I say I am blessed to. So,
I love
yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I always say, and the spending thing, which I always say, the money I spend comes back to me tenfold.
Mm,
So it's very, okay, maybe I don't need this thing, but it will make me happy and it'll bring me joy. Well, I know I can afford it. I know I don't really need it, but it brings me joy. So the money I spend comes back to me tenfold. I'll usually buy that pair of jeans that I don't need because I have this new way of I've let go of the fear of
yeah,
around money. So that's the reason it works.
beautiful.
So um I'm wondering, before we wrap up here today, Wendy, can you let our listeners know about any offerings that you have available and how they might find you if they'd like to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me a couple places on Facebook. I'm Wendy Johnson Sharon. Sharon spelled like Sharon, Sharon. You can also find me on Facebook at Wake Up with Wendy, as well as my Facebook group, Divorce After 50 Support for Women. Right now, I am offering a 12-week empowerment journey to help women, as we've talked about today, that are navigating divorce, that want to move out of fear and into self-love. So we go through things like what we talked about, forgiveness, learning, who we really are. Who are we versus who we think we are? We talk a lot about forgiveness, and just how important it is to be in community and having support of somebody who believes in us when we don't believe in ourselves.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And all of Wendy's information will be in the show notes at the end of the show. So if you didn't get any of that, just go to the show notes. And just a reminder, if you'd like to work with me, you can schedule a free discovery call on my website, tapintohealth.net. Or if you're ready to start right now, you can visit my online store and download some pre-recorded mini sessions. So thank you all so much for listening today. Thank you, Wendy, for being here with us. And we'll see you next time. Until then, keep tapping.